Welcome to the Selling Show, where we unpack, repack, and break down exactly how top experts sell their ideas, their value, and their services. This is your host, David Newman, and you are in the right place if you want better clients, bigger deals, and higher fees. You know that business that you're running? Yeah, well, at some point, you're going to stop running it, and you don't want to be stupid. So what you want advice from the Sherpa. And you are so lucky because here she is, Laurie Barkman. Welcome to the Selling Show.
David, thank you. I'm so excited to be with you.
And of course, the Sherpa reference is because one of your identities out there is the business transition Sherpa. Talk a little bit, Laurie, about your backstory and how you came to the work that you're doing today, and what were some interesting pit stops along the way.
I have orbited entrepreneurs for more than 25 years, and intrapreneurs should get credit too. These are the people working in big companies who are innovators and leading new business arenas. So founders, intrapreneurs, entrepreneurs, I've always been working with people to grow and create value. Really passionate about that. Most of my career has been in marketing. And a number of years ago, I was recruited from the outside to a third generation company. At the time, it was being run by the chairman, who was my boss. I got hired in as part of a long-term succession plan to run one of the divisions of the company. And it was a pretty sizable division. My division was over 100 million in revenue. And lo and behold, instead of being at this company for 20 years, as we talked about in the interview, I was there for 3 because we were acquired. We were acquired by a global company that was very exciting to go through a transaction like that, very exciting to go through the integration. Afterwards, I was part of the integration team. I was one of the key executives. So I became an SVP, an officer of the new entity, which was exciting, but it was short-lived. And after that, I realized I liked these deal things. I liked being part of deals. I liked being part of this process. I worked for a private equity group, a boutique firm, and was on the other side of the table doing deals. And around a year or two later, I was getting more and more connected into professional services firms, accounting firms, law firms, and learned about exit planning as a practice and this giant age wave tsunami that's supposed to be coming of baby boomers retiring and not having succession plans. And that's what got me interested in applying strategic planning for growth and value creation, anticipating a baton, a handover. And then eventually got my certification in mergers and acquisitions. And now as a Sherpa, and I use that term very particularly because it's a journey that we're on as entrepreneurs. We didn't build our business on our own. Why would we look to transition it on our own? And I am with you on your journey. And that's why I use that phrase just to visualize, I'm with you. Let's guide a process here. And I've kind of bundled all my services together as the business transition Sherpa. What I like to say is I work from transition to transaction, from creating value to letting go.
And there is so much involved here. I mean, it is, when you say it's a journey, it's like a capital J journey. And you have so many fantastic ideas. Before we turned on the microphones, I was saying how much I love your book, The Business Transition Handbook. And at the very beginning of the Business Transition Handbook, and I want to see if our listeners are kind of vibing with these questions, because it's like you have psychic vision into the business owner's mindset. So who will take over for me one day? What's my business worth? Should I sell? Who would want to buy it? Is my business ready? Am I ready? What's holding me back? What would make my business more valuable? When should I start planning how and when I will leave my business? What should I be doing now to get ready? And of course, you've got a wealth of very specific strategies, details, criteria, benchmarks, things to think about. So you also make the point that every business has a transition. 100% of businesses have some sort of transition event in their future, whether that's 5 years from now, 50 years from now, whatever it is. And as you just said a moment ago, it's insane not to plan. Let's walk through the first couple of mistakes that you see the business owner or the entrepreneur make when, and number one, of course, is having no plan whatsoever. But tell us a little bit about personally, professionally, financially, what are they not thinking about that they should be right from the get-go?
It's amazing how our identity creeps in to our world of being a business owner or owning a business. Are we arm's length with our business, or is it our quote unquote our baby? How many people have you spoken to that really feel that way? They've created something. They don't want to part from it. It's part of them, and vice versa. And that in and of itself can be a big watch out. If we've created a business that cannot thrive or survive without us, how valuable is that going to be going forward? What's the likelihood of that business continuing going forward? You know, there's some amazing statistics out there about longevity of a company. And I want to just put our framework on for a second. Think about organizations like people. And if we said, you know what, most companies aren't going to make it past the 9th grade. They don't make it past 15 years old. Oh my goodness. The mortality rate, would we be satisfied as human beings that that was our mortality rate? I think we'd be doing something about that.
We would not be happy campers. We would not be happy campers. So let's talk about potential exit strategies. You know, the sort of layman's version, and then what they really need to do to start thinking the right way about this. And again, I'm just going to read from the book because it's so rich, it's so detailed. So, potential exit strategies. Step back from the day-to-day. Like right there, I think 80 to 90% of the people listening going, Laurie, step back from the day-to-day? What do you mean? Tell us, what do we need to be thinking about and putting in place so that we can start to step back from the day-to-day of running our companies?
Well, let's realize what gives us our business. Is it because we are so good at delivering the product or service that no one else can do it? Do we inherently have a business that isn't teachable? It's valuable. Is it repeatable? Is it a one-time thing that you're doing? Can you teach others to do it? And is your customer willing to pay for it? And then how can that scale? So if you yourself are the one who gets out the wrench and knows where to kick the machine in the machine shop, or you are the photographer and you are the reason that people are coming to your photography studio, it's going to feel great because you probably know your customers by name and you feel a good sense of pride. But again, it's going to hold you back. You're going to be working on, you're not going to take a vacation. And when you're on a vacation, you cannot unplug. And ultimately, your health is probably going to give out, or you're going to be stressed, or you're eventually going to say, I'm so sick of this. I want to do something completely different. But you haven't built around you. So you can build around you by processes and putting processes in place, documenting what those are. There's some amazing digital tools now to document processes, whether they're video or you're writing them down in Google Sheets, whatever it is. And also putting a team around you. I'm not saying everybody has to have a big W-2 team. You can have 1099 teams. You can have virtual assistants and other people that are freelancing working with you. But nonetheless, you're creating something that could be transferred to another owner.
Yes. And there is, rightfully so, I think, one of the early chapters in the Business Transition Handbook is about mindset. The way that we're engaging in the business, the way that we think about the business, the way that we think about our identity relative to the business. Walk us through some of the mindset traps and some of the mindset resets that we need to have to do this the smart way.
I do workshops for CEOs and business owners, and I start the workshop by asking, when I say the word transition, what comes to mind? And I write down the words that they say. And that list that's comprehensive is in the book. That's where that list came from. I kept track of more than 20 workshops and wrote down all the words. And what was really interesting, David, in the beginning, when I was doing this workshop, I would determine whether or not that word had a positive, negative, and neutral connotation. And someone, to their credit, raised their hand and says, wait a minute, I disagree with that one. I think it's this. And I said, holy cow, what a blinding flash of the obvious. You're right. It isn't about what I think. It's about what you think. And so this exercise in the book is a transition mindset exercise. I want people to circle the words that are meaningful to them. Does transition have a positive connotation to you, something more neutral, or are they negative? And as soon as I get a read on the room, the vibe of the room, then I know for my audience, okay, this is going to be a challenge. Or, okay, they've thought about this. They're already vibing with me. It's going to take a different tone. And so that's why I put that chapter so early in the book. For you and your personal mindset towards change, there are people, some in my family, that just don't like change. They don't want to change the color of the walls. They don't want a new car. They like what they have. And then there's others that are like, bring it on. Let's go. What are we waiting for? And this is a big thing. This is your business. This is your livelihood. This is as we talked about earlier, your identity. And it's also for some, the livelihood of their family. There's lots of checks going out to lots of different people over time if it's a multiple generation company. So there's good reason to be hesitant about change. I get it. But change is going to happen whether we make it happen or not. And are we going to be prepared? Is change going to happen to us, or we're going to watch it happen? Or are we going to be purposeful and have intent and make it happen? So the other part of that chapter that I explored is, kind of the psychology concept of cognitive dissonance. If you're going to a political rally on a specific cause and you don't believe in that cause, your body will physically react a certain way. Your mind might say, oh, this is interesting. It's like a social experiment. But your body is like, oh my God, I don't feel well. I got to get out of here. If you don't really want to participate in the process to change your business or transition your business or sell your business, what's going to happen? It isn't going to feel good to you, and you're not going to do anything about it, and you're going to kick the can. And then that becomes a vicious cycle, right? Because ultimately, you can't plan for your exit when you're exiting. It's too late.
We interrupt this interview with an important announcement. If you're committed to better clients, bigger deals, and higher fees, get over to doitselling.com right now and grab a copy of my new book. That's the deal, kids. Grab a copy of the new book and then get all the bonuses, companion tools, trainings, and downloads at doitselling.com. Buy the book, get the bonuses. Buy the book, get the bonuses. Buy the book, get the bonuses. That's how it works. I'll see you over there. And you talk about, you don't talk about it this way. I'm going to talk about it this way. There's a 3-layer lasagna. So there is business readiness, there is financial readiness, and then there's personal readiness. And when I read that, I was like, oh boy, that a lot of people think, oh, it's just financial. It's just, let's do the dollars and cents and, let's talk about multiples and let's talk about recurring revenue. And it is so far beyond that. Unpack for us a little bit. What are a couple of the considerations, business and financial, and then perhaps even most importantly, because that's where we tend to get stuck, personal?
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that you were describing the chapters earlier, it's worth noting. I did write them with that intent of what are potential succession pitfalls, and I want to avoid them. I want my reader to avoid them. So each chapter is a pitfall to avoid. Yeah. And I set it up very purposefully in the order also. I suggest people read it in that order for a reason. I start with, and you talk about lasagna, I talk about 3-legged stool. Right. If you take away one of the legs, what happens? It falls down. So it's really important to have all 3 legs of the stool and all 3 layers of the lasagna. And the personal transition, the personal readiness is so important. And it's easy to ignore, kick that can. And then guess what? There can be a lot of negative feelings associated with an exit or transition if we're really not prepared. So with my clients, it's generally the first place I start. We talk about their identity. We talk about what roles they have in their company and outside their company. What's a role? Well, are you a father, a husband, or wife, a partner? You're a friend. You're a colleague. All these things that we can realize about ourselves makes us a whole person. But so many people don't make the time for those things, maybe a little bit, And what I try to get them to talk about upfront is how they would spend their time if they weren't doing what they're doing today. And it's a runway. We want to create a runway because this isn't going to happen tomorrow. And so we have the ability to think about, well, what would I be doing? And when I work on ultimately, which is a strategic business transition plan with people and my clients, it's 3 sets of goals: personal, financial, and business. And page 1 is personal. And it's, again, too easy to not spend time on it. But there's been a lot of work done by some great authors that talk about regret. And ultimately, what I'm trying to do is help people avoid these exit regrets. What are the flavors of regret? Well, there's 2 main flavors, I believe. One is we took an action and we regret that action. The other is we didn't take an action and we regret not doing anything.
Yes. Wow. Really, really important. As far as, and I know this is very high level, but we can go as detailed as you want. Early on, one of the things that you ask business owners to really think about to get ready for this type of transition is, what do you need to delegate? What do you need to train other people? And then what do you need to build that doesn't exist right now? Talk a little bit about train, delegate, build.
Yeah, absolutely. As the owner, and if you're trying to build your team around you, we're recognizing inherently you can't do it yourself. And developing clear roles and responsibilities in your organization is really important. Delegating things over time to people who have the competency and skill to take on those responsibilities, you have to be well matched, right? If you delegate, but that person doesn't have the financial skills to do financial modeling, what good is that delegation? It's not going to go anywhere. So we want to be well matched in what it is you're delegating, and do some mentoring and coaching if you have someone that's sort of new in that role, or if you're finding a vendor or a partner like an outside firm. Let's stay on the financial, for example, because I find a lot of businesses don't have an in-house financial resource. And there are wonderful professionals like CPA firms that you can hire and be service providers to you, or you can find someone like a partial CFO that they have CFO skills, but you're not going to pay their annual salary. You'll pay, on a monthly basis, some retainer most likely. But that's a great way to get the skill set and not have to have that annual operating expense for that headcount. So I think to be mindful about what not only your strengths are and your weaknesses and opportunities as a leader, but directionally also of the areas that you want to build out in your business. I have a lot of leaders that are so good operationally, but they're not great in business development. They probably need folks with your skill sets, David.
Yeah.
But for them, they also need a solution where if they're going to grow through organic means, meaning organic growth is things that we control. And so what is it that we can build and innovate on for our product and services? Maybe we need more marketing and service help. Again, are we going to outsource that? Are we going to build our own team? And how do we do that over time? It's incumbent upon founders and leaders to not only develop their capabilities sort of top down, but I think really bottom up in all levels of the business to train and mentor and be purposeful about what it is, who do we need on the team, what skills do we need, and what could we afford and when. And there's lots of great examples where companies do stretch themselves to get that next level of vice presidents, maybe a little bit earlier than they think they can afford from a cash flow standpoint, but they do it as an investment because they know it's going to enhance their business value. And they say, I'm willing to forego some of my, profits this year and next year because I know that I'm going to get a big payback on having these management people, with me to help me build the value of my company.
Yes. Really, really important. In the beginning, you also talk about sort of why we're moving away from the business and then what we're moving toward. So for some people, it's simply an age thing, right? They're ready to retire. For some people, they've just lost the mojo, right? It's like, I'm kind of getting maxed out, stressed out, burned out. This isn't fun anymore. Other people, it's a life thing, right? So it could be divorce, it could be death, it could be, someone, God forbid, becomes critically ill, and that takes a lot of your attention. So those are the triggers to say, hey, I really need to get out of this at some point and maybe some point soon. And then what we're moving towards, like literally, how will you spend your time? Will you start another business? Will you volunteer? Will you pursue some new skills and hobbies and learn new things, take classes? Will you travel? I think there's kind of Catholic guilt, Jewish guilt, Muslim guilt, pick your religion. They all have the guilt. If I'm not involved day to day, if my team doesn't see me in the trenches, I must be a bad leader. I must be a bad business owner. Talk about that healthy sense of detachment and how that's a necessary component as we're thinking about what do we need to delegate, what do we need to train, what do we need to build, that the good, quote unquote, good business owner is not the business owner that has their hands and their fingers in everything all the time.
Yeah, it's incredible when we realize that the value of our business is likely to go up as the business owner's involvement goes down. Boom. It's so counterintuitive. I have a business assessment that people are welcome to take if they want to get it. It's on my website. And it's a business assessment as well as a personal readiness assessment, by the way. Both of those are on my site. And what is so useful about those is it helps you see your business in a new way. You're looking at it from more of the outside in, particularly on the business assessment. There was one woman who owns a graphic design photography company, and she literally said to me, "Oh my gosh, I thought I was the secret sauce. I thought I was the magic for this firm. Now I realize I'm holding us back." Because she needed to be involved in all the campaigns. She needed to be the graphic designer on the project. And how do we make a healthy detachment? The pull factors, the things that are going to pull you forward to your next thing, what you're excited about. Maybe it's because you want to launch a new business, or maybe it's because you really want to spend your time with your family, or you want to travel, or it's these negative things that are holding you back, or reasons why you would sell. There's correlations, David, between having more positive factors and having a higher value for the business, and offer a higher offer for your business. And it's intuitive, right? If we have more negative things associated with the sale of or transition of our company, there's more likely to be a discount. If your business partner has died, if you are sick, if there are, kind of economic crises or industry crises or other crises around your business, those negative factors, more things pushing you out of your business. Intuitively, it makes sense that you're going to have a discount applied. There's some negative thing associated with that business. And of course, it all depends on timing and other factors. But generally speaking, the detachment can be healthy for you as the owner. Earlier, I said a phrase. I want to just kind of underscore it for a moment. Are you a business owner or do you own a business? Think about the family enterprises. People have a family business. What many are being encouraged to do is to think about that as a family enterprise, where it isn't just the business, maybe it's other things too, whether it's real estate, and it enables more of that separation so that we can take a bit of emotion out of running the business day to day and look at it really as an asset. For many business owners, that entity is the largest percentage of their net worth. And as the value of the business grows, for many, it's also going to grow commensurately. And we're probably not diversified in that asset class, right? And that's the watch out over time. And I do talk about some of those examples in the book when we can get it wrong. We hold on too long, right? So this detachment of enabling you to think about, here's another concept, that your business should be ready for sale any day, because you never know when the time's going to be right, and you want to be ready for it. But guess what? All the things that we do and that we talk about in the book and that you and I are talking about in this show to make your business run better, be more enjoyable to operate, it's going to make it more healthy for you, for your employees, your stakeholders, your customers. It just makes economic sense. And again, that's another reason why wait? It's kind of like when you're getting ready to move and you're going to redo your bathroom or your kitchen. You're like, damn, I should have remodeled. I should have remodeled and enjoyed these 10 years ago. It's the same thing with your business.
One thing that you also talk about, speaking of remodeling kitchens, maybe that's a great example. You have a kitchen remodeling business. And so the business owner thinks, I'm in the business of, guess what? Remodeling kitchens. one-time project, one-time project, one-time project. Just keep on selling, keep on marketing, keep on remodeling kitchens. And that's one of the deadly traps, isn't it? About one-time sales versus the magic of recurring revenue. And I'm sure that some of the business owners that come to you, Laurie, the first thing they say is, Laurie, I get it. I read your book. I totally understand. My business, there is absolutely no way to add a recurring revenue model to what we do. Talk about that one-time sale model, right? Business model, revenue model, service model versus the magic of recurring revenue, and maybe even some unconventional, some surprising stories that you've taken a business that thought they could never possibly do it, and you guided them into more of a monthly recurring revenue model.
Yeah, it's a great topic. And it's certainly one of the main value drivers for a business if they can create a recurring revenue model. So let's just distinguish recurring from reoccurring, because those are two different words and they have very different meanings. Recurring means there's a contract between you, the business, and the customer. It can be with our credit card on Amazon, like Amazon Prime, or with Netflix, where we've happily put in our credit card and they are happily charging us every month or every year. And that's a subscription model. And by the way, it most likely automatically renews. So a lot of software companies have moved to this model for good reason. And when it comes to valuing our business, companies that have a more predictable stream of future cash flow will most likely see a multiple of revenue, which is highly desirable, as opposed to a multiple of a number that's further down on the income statement, which is your profit or EBITDA.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to the math, that's why when you hear these software companies or digital businesses that have these big multiples, it's because it's a multiple of revenue. So we've laid the groundwork why people should care. Now, how hard is it? And examples where we've sort of helped unlock some value. I have a client that's in the energy space, and they do building efficiency evaluations, and they are in the process of developing recurring revenue model for monitoring. It's an interesting example, right? So it's a service business, but there's no reason that they can't create a package and create a service package that is renewed, on this annual contract. So I'm working with them currently on that. It's very, very exciting. Another example is a manufacturing business. And manufacturers are very quick to go, oh, we can't. However, think about your customer and what pain points they have and what do you solve for them? What product are you manufacturing? In this particular example, they were manufacturing a widget that needed to be replenished because it gets used in a manufacturing process and it wears out. So you need to replace it on, however many uses it gets. Oh my goodness. That was just ripe for a replenishment renewal program. So that's another example. And in the book and in my workshops, when I do these workshops, we talk about the 8 different value drivers that your business might perform well in, or maybe be a little bit below par. And it's good to be aware of what they are and what you can do to punch above your weight class in your industry. And more often than not, this particular value driver, when we measure, I mentioned this assessment earlier, and what you get back is a score for all you quantitative people out there. You will get a score of not just the overall of a 0 to 100 point scale, but across these 8 value drivers, you will get a point score on all 8. And you'll get a baseline comparative on these 8 of where you are versus your peers. And recurring revenue, more often than not, tends to be one of the lower. And therein lies the opportunity. So I love talking with clients. This is a little bit of innovation too. Like, let's understand from the market standpoint, what needs are not being met, what opportunities might we have, and what could we innovate around that satisfies not only the customer need, but also satisfies our interest in creating a new business model.
Yeah, really, really interesting. You mentioned in the book that to most business owners, and certainly the first time that they're looking to exit a business, this is completely uncharted territory. This is completely unfamiliar. They literally do not know what they do not know. And you lay out lots of opportunities and hidden traps and things that could go right and things that could go wrong. Talk about a strategic buyer versus a financial buyer versus the other types of buyers and what people might just look forward to as they're making this, opening their eyes for the first time of what might be possible for them.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a chapter which is basically who should own your business after you. It's one of my favorite chapters. And we do talk about the different types of buyers at a high level, these different buckets. It's really important. And when I do this in person and I have this workshop and I put up a PowerPoint slide, people get out their cameras. I mean, everyone's sort of taking pictures of it because they're like, oh, we've never seen it in this framework. It's so helpful to understand. So I'll dive in at a high level. And if we want to dive in any deeper, of course, we can do that. Generally, there's 3 categories: the strategic buyer, a financial buyer, and a related buyer. Those are the 3 high-level categories. So I'll start left to right as I visualize it. Left to right is strategic. And the strategic buyer, in essence, is a company. They could be a competitor to you. They could be a partner. They could be a customer, but they're a company. And what they're looking for is most likely to buy the assets of your business so they can stitch it in with their business. And by the way, most likely they're going to be 5 to 20 times larger than you in revenue. It's called the 5 to 20 rule. And I quote John Warlow, author of Built to Sell, and he did a testimonial for my book. So I love that quote from John. It's a very helpful heuristic to help us think about, who maybe could afford to buy my business, right? And who strategically might want my business and how would they benefit? Just like I said before, if we can think about our market and what problems we solve, what pain points do we solve for them? It's a build versus buy decision when it comes to strategics. Be mindful of that because when you're not in the room, that's what they're talking about. Okay. But in general, because it's an asset deal and they are looking to strip out pieces or costs of your business they don't necessarily need. And that's how they're going to get an ROI on it. So most likely strategics are going to pay the highest dollar. Not always. I'm just saying in general. That's why I sort of start with them. The next category are financial buyers. And the most common example of this category are private equity groups. Private equity groups raise money from independent folks or institutional investors. And then the people running the fund make decisions around what portfolio decisions they want to make. And they will look to buy a large entity, and they'll call that a platform deal. And that means that it can kind of stand on its own. So let's say the business they want to buy is a $10 million business, and they're not yet in that business. That maybe it's an HVAC company or whatever it is. And it's large enough that they want to buy that entity and they want it, and they're going to run it just like it is. Okay, what happens over time when they want to start to stitch in some smaller acquisitions underneath that mothership? Kind of sounds like the strategic, doesn't it? I just explained it that way, right? Yes, and we call that a hybrid. And these are called tuck-ins or add-ons. So while a private equity group sometimes won't necessarily pay as much as a strategic, when it comes to these tuck-ins and they look a little bit more like a strategic offer because they're going to get synergies in the cost structure, you just might see different multiples. And then the third category of related buyers can be literally related to you, like your family, or they can be these other insiders like your management team. And management team members know where all the bodies are buried too. And so what we look to do most often in this category is a fair value. It's not the highest value, and it could be a little bit below market, but not much. It's pretty much, fair value.
Wait. We're not just going to listen to this episode. There are downloads, there are resources, there are links, there are bonuses waiting for you on this episode's page when you go over to doitmarketing.com/podcast. That's right, doitmarketing.com/podcast. Grab the notes right under this episode. See you over there. Now, for a professional services firm, consulting firm, training firm, coaching company, in addition to removing the owner from the center of the picture and putting in systems and process and delegating and documenting and all of these things, There's a mentor of mine, and I have no idea how to do this because much easier said than done. They say, okay, you have a thought leadership business, you have an expertise-based business. Make the system the celebrity. So Laurie Barkman, no longer the celebrity, it's the business transition Sherpa and that system and that method and that intellectual property. That is the celebrity. Of course, initially, Laurie is the face and the voice and, the spokesperson for the brand. But as far as we know, Laurie Barkman, you could have 50 business transition specialists working under you and an entire boutique firm behind you. What can we start putting in place sooner rather than later if we're in the expert industry that would make our business more scalable and saleable?
Everybody can think about productizing their service. If you're a service business, what is your product? And it's sort of like the question earlier, recurring revenue. Oh, I can't do that. Well, I love this one too. Yes, we can. And I've had to eat my own dog food on it. And you read the book, so you know where I'm headed here. The strategic business transition framework that I've put together, the strategic business transition process. I describe a process. That's the product. So when I work with clients and I work with them on a month-to-month basis as an advisor, sure, that's one flavor. And the other flavor is, this is the strategic business transition planning process. Here are the steps. Here's what we're going to do. And here's what's going to cost. Every service provider can think about productizing in a way that makes it repeatable, teachable, and valuable.
Really, really powerful. I think everyone's asking the elephant in the room question, because we talked about this in our last conversation about, hey, Laurie, I'm ready to sell. I'm looking to get rid of this thing in like 6 months. I'm getting ready to sell this thing, sometime in the next year. And of course, that is too late. You have the ancient Chinese proverb in the book that best time to plant a tree 20 years ago, second best time to plant a tree is today. What is a smart reverse timeline when you say, hey, I'm going to exit by this date, rolling the calendar back? When do we need to start planning? When do we start putting this infrastructure in place? When do we start making some of these changes if we're not going to be rushed and we're not going to have a suboptimal sale price or exit event?
I think 5 to 7 years is a very safe space. 10 years for people just feels so far out. It's exciting to talk with folks who do think that far ahead, and I applaud them. The folks that are 5 to 7 years out are in a good place because you won't be rushed. Things always take longer than you think, always, always. And you can create more, as I say, you can create more valuable exit options when time is on your side.
Yeah.
Let's say that we baseline the value of your business today. We'll do a valuation, we'll baseline where you are, we'll talk about your financial goals, and we'll understand if you have a gap. And many companies do, many people do. When an owner says, yeah, I need to net 10 million from this transaction, and we do the work back math and we're like, oh, wait a minute, you're only going to net 5. Well, let's talk tax mitigation strategies. You can't rush a tax mitigation strategy if you want to get one in place, and there's several of them out there. It's just one example of, yeah, maybe we can get to your net number. And if we can't do it by increasing the value of your business organically, are we going to do it through acquisition and we have more time for that? Or are we going to say, you know what, it's all about tax mitigation and we're going to get there one way or another? You've said it so well, and I'm going to just underscore it. There is no one answer of how to do this. It is a giant puzzle piece, a giant piece of puzzles, right? We're going to put it all together. And it just is important to surround yourself with advisors who have experience. They've been around the block. I pull in, my Rolodex is deep. And what people say is like, oh my gosh, yeah, I've never been through this before. I don't really know what questions to ask. I want to have somebody I can trust. And then I want you to pull in people that you trust. And that's what I do.
Yeah. Now you said 5 to 7. Again, I'm channeling our listeners. They're like, how about 3 to 4? How about 2 to 3? And I want to put those people's minds at ease. And maybe you can do it on an accelerated time frame, but that's not my point. My point is, you look at those 8 value drivers that you put into the plan. As soon as the first handful of those are in place, my thinking, and again, I'm sort of your ideal target client because I'm like, can we do this in 3 to 4? Does it not make the business, if it's saleable, it's scalable, we're starting to make these changes, isn't it just a lot more fun to run that kind of business so that 5 to 7 years does not sound like a prison sentence, like, oh, I got to keep doing what I'm doing today for the next 5 to 7 years? Are you nuts? It's like, no, everything will get better as you're getting the business ready for the exit. Is that true or no?
Generally, yeah, I think it is. And just to be clear, if someone says to me, Laurie, I want to leave in, 3 to 4, or if someone says 12 months, I meet them where they are. That's okay. There's no sort of time shaming here, and I recognize you're busy. You are running your business, and that is your first priority. So I get it. And the practice of planning is not necessarily everybody's favorite thing. It's just too easy to put off. So just to kind of put everybody at ease, if they say, I am 1 year away, of course, let's talk, right? Or if I'm 2 years away, I'm 3 years away. The difference is, David, is that you won't have time to make changes. We're just going to get you packaged and brought to market. That's really the main difference. You can be packaged and brought to market at any point. But if what we discover in that packaging and getting you ready is that your financials are a mess, your website's really old, you don't have processes documented, you have an owner-centric business, we have what we have.
Yeah.
We have what we have, and we have to be realistic about the selling price. I have a client whose employees are so loyal and wonderful. However, the top employees are roughly his age, and they've been with him 20, 30 years. Well, what now? When he's ready to retire, so are they. He didn't have a deep bench.
Right.
And the time to make changes for that would have been 10 years ago. When it's time to sell, it's too late.
Yeah, really, really powerful. Well, as we're landing the plane here, if folks were to take one overarching concept from our conversation today about business transition, getting ready personally, professionally, financially, emotionally, having the discipline and the guidance to make some of these changes as they're getting ready, what would that overarching big takeaway be in your mind?
Biggest takeaway is to start planning today, tomorrow, yesterday. That is the main thing, is make it a priority, have an intention. And once you have that intention, start to feel good about it. This is not a negative thing. This is not a taboo topic. On my podcast, Succession Stories, I have more business owners coming on to talk about their legacy and to talk about what's important to them looking forward. I have lovely conversations with people on the show about looking backward. Don't get me wrong. We learn a lot from others, from their experience. But it's this notion of legacy for you personally and for your business. And that's the main takeaway, is let that happen. Let your mind go there. And when you feel ready to start working on this, have someone like me work with you as a guide.
Awesome. Now, Laurie Barkman, totally brilliant. I know people want to get connected and stay connected to more Laurie Barkman genius, more advice from the Sherpa. Where can we send people? What links can we drop in the show notes? What resources can we share?
Oh, thanks, David. The businesstransitionhandbook.com is a great place for people to go. If they're interested in learning more about my book, they can get a free PDF download just by going to that website, thebusinesstransitionhandbook.com. And I'll also send you a second goodie, which is a workbook that you can use to map out all of your goals and work through the exercises in the book. And of course, if they want to get it, they can grab it on Amazon, and that would be lovely as well. And my podcast, Succession Stories, is available wherever people listen to shows and on my website also. And I love it when people connect with me on LinkedIn. And if they do, they should let me know, David, that they saw me on your show or heard me on your show. And I would love to connect with them there.
Excellent. All right. So all of those links will be waiting for you in the show notes directly and immediately under this episode when you go to thesellingshow.com. This is literally something where even if you never thought about exiting, I'm going to encourage you, grab Laurie's resources, grab the free PDF of the book, take the assessment, because as my friend Laurie Barkman says, 100% of businesses at some point will exit. And you don't want to die in ninth grade. Dying in ninth grade is just depressing. There's enough bad things happening in ninth grade. So Laurie Barkman, thank you, my friend. I appreciate you so much. And this was just value laden as always.
Thank you, David. It was great to be with you.
And that wraps up another episode of The Selling Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, tell a friend, go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thesellingshow.com. See you next time.